Hello and welcome to this episode of the Cloud Gaming Report. In this episode, I'm kind of titling the E3 Mega News episode. This kind of has all the news since the last episode of events leading up to E3 with Google's big Stadia event and then Microsoft's E3 pre-show, as well as some news that has come out so far from E3. So I'm recording this Wednesday morning. I plan on editing it after work today. So hopefully I will get this out Wednesday. So if there's any news that comes out kind of in the last part of E3, I'll catch it up in the next episode of Cloud Gaming. But this will be the major topics so far that have been announced. We have a lot to talk about, especially from Stadia. They released a ton of details about the launch of Google Stadia, including pricing and where it's going to be initially available at. So guys, without further delay, let's go ahead and jump to our first topic, which is going to be Google Stadia and all of the launch details that we have about it so far. All right, so we have a ton of details about Google Stadia, so we're just going to dive right in. So first, I'm going to talk about when Google Stadia is going to be available. If you buy the Founders Edition, you will be able to access Google Stadia late 2019. All the rumors are indicating November, but I do not believe that Google has confirmed that at all, at least as far as I have seen. If you do not buy the Founders Edition, then you will be able to access Google Stadia. It will launch to the wide market in 2020. No timeline on that at all. So we don't know how early you will be getting access to Google Stadia if you buy the Founders Edition. It looks like probably about 2 months at the minimum, but possibly even more. It might not launch until later in 2020, maybe February, March. We really have no idea how early access you're actually getting with the Founders Edition. The Founders Edition is a $130 bundle. It includes some of the hardware aspects, though, to get you started and get you up and running with Google Stadia. This includes the Chromecast Ultra, so if you don't have one of those, this is a good deal because you're going to probably want that if you are going to be gaming in the living room setup, more than likely, unless you have like a home theater PC or something like that already connected to your TV setup. So you get a Chromecast Ultra. You also get a special edition of the Stadia controller, so it's kind of like a deep blue color. So that's cool. And you also get 3 months of Stadia Pro, which we'll talk about Stadia Pro later. You get for you, as well as a code that you can give to a friend. So that's pretty interesting because you're essentially getting a $60 value there. So that brings everything else to $70 for the Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller. You also get the Destiny 2 collection. I am not in the Destiny 2 scene at all. I used to play Destiny 1 quite some time ago, but I don't know about all the expansions. I do know that Destiny 2 recently went free to play, but they do have an expansion coming out that is going to cost money. So the Destiny 2 collection includes that expansion. So essentially it's all the content for Destiny 2 that is available right now, as well as what's coming in the next year, I believe, because it includes the subscription pass thingy that they do. So with that being said, if you are a Destiny 2 fan, there's an extra added bonus there. So the devices that Google Stadia will be available, at least in the early launch, is going to be pretty much any desktop using the Chrome browser. So any Windows desktop or laptop, anything along those lines, as long as you have the Chrome browser, you're good there. You can run on pretty much any TV with a Chromecast. So you're good there. Tablets, they mentioned tablets. Now, I don't know exactly know if they're opening this to all Android tablets, because on the smartphone side of things, they are restricting it to the Pixel 3 and the 3A phones. So that does include the XL variants, of course. So I don't know on the tablets if they're just talking about general tablets, or if it's all Android tablets. They're not restricting the tablet side of things. They're only restricting the phone side of things. I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know that that's simply to help give their phones a little bit added kind of benefit compared to the competitors, with a big cloud gaming platform kind of backing them. I don't know exactly why they are restricting them. I don't know any technical reason why they would have to be on the 3 or the 3A, at least is kind of what I'm getting at. So with that being said, of course, if you have a Chromebook or a Chrome laptop or something like that, you'll be able to use that too. So moving on from there, we have the pricing. So this is where things get very interesting because Google is doing things a little bit different from what we have so far with offerings like using Paperspace or AWS in conjunction with Parsec, or using something like Shadow's cloud gaming platform. So with Google, they're actually trying to kind of run a game service, kind of like what Epic is trying to get up and going right now. And they will get a cut of the sales from that game's selling service So they're kind of hedging that by actually offering a free tier to their cloud gaming platform. So Stadia base is completely free. You can play up to 1080p at 60 FPS. So if you plan on primarily using Google Stadia on a mobile device, since the screen is so small, 1080p is really all you're going to need. And especially if you're playing on Wi-Fi, about 60 FPS is probably all you're really going to be able to effectively stream over the bandwidth we currently have available. Now 5G could possibly change that in the future, but that's something that is very highly limited right now and simply don't have the data to fully test it. So with that being said, that is very interesting because essentially you're not paying anything for the game platform that you're playing on, and you're just paying for the games themselves. Of course, we have Steam right now, and Steam sells big sales, so maybe you won't have as deep discounts on the games themselves if you buy them through Google's platform. That is really up in the air. They did announce that they are supporting Uplay. They didn't mention any of the other kind of subscriptions. We have E3, or not E3's, EA's subscription with Origin Premier. That gives you an access to a big catalog of games, including brand new games. We have Microsoft's Game Pass for Windows. So we actually know that Google Stadia is actually running on Linux, so that pretty much cuts out probably Microsoft's Game Pass for Windows, but we don't know if they will support EA subscription, but we do know that they are going to support Uplay subscription service. So if you have that subscription service, you won't have to buy those games through the Stadia store. So that's even a better deal if you have a lot of games from Ubisoft that you do enjoy. They also have the Stadia Pro tier. This is $9.99 a month, so about $10 a month really, because they always like taking one penny off and making it seem like it's much cheaper. So we're just going to call it $10 a month. This gets you up to 4K resolution with HDR at 60 FPS. I don't know right now off the top of my head if you kind of scale back the resolution, if you can get higher FPS right now. I don't remember that off the top of my head, like I just said. But I don't recall actually seeing anything about a higher refresh rate. So hopefully that will be coming in the future too. But right now, if you do pay the $10 per month subscription, you will be able to actually stream at up to 4K resolutions. So there is some cool things going on there because that's going to be a big game changer. And I actually have kind of a whole video as well as a written article that I'm kind of working on now that I'll hopefully have out within about a week or so, that I kind of go over the pricing and how this could shake up the market, but how it also might not impact the kind of other cloud gaming competitors as much as I initially thought, because a free cloud gaming platform, that is a huge draw. And I think Google is counting on that to hopefully get people coming to their platform using their store, and then they're going to get some revenue from the store itself by selling games through the storefront. And hopefully people will get, really start enjoying it and testing it and want to upgrade to the Pro package, which actually has some added benefits. Like there's going to be discounts tied to the Pro. So their goal is hopefully to get people coming to their platform, testing it out, buying games on their storefront so they'll get a cut there, and then hopefully upgrading to the Pro tier, which it's very possible that they might add additional benefits to in the future. So this is something that is really unique, because Google is so big that they can actually try to launch a game storefront. This is something that it'd be very difficult for something like Shadow to do, to launch a brand new storefront as well as host architecture, because Shadow pretty much has to build up all the hardware architecture, all the data centers, and to be able to afford that and launching a game storefront at the same time would be very difficult for them. So this is something that's going to be more unique to the big, huge titans out there, such as Google and Microsoft. We already know that Microsoft already has a storefront from Xbox, so they'll be able to natively kind of bring that over, even though this is on the Windows side of thing. And we'll talk about Xbox later because they brought their Game Pass over completely for PC. But we'll discuss that later because this is the Stadia portion of the podcast. So moving on for pricing, some exciting things there. I will have more to say about that in the very near future. So our final bit about Google Stadia is where it's going to be available. There was a big list of games available at launch that have already been announced. There will probably be more by the time it actually fully launches, because that is in November. So that's quite some time for developers to get on board, to test their games and make them officially available, to be available on Google storefront, especially as all the buzz that's kind of being generated about Stadia. More developers will probably be interested in offering their games on the Google storefront. So with that being said, We will have more there, but if you do want to get the full list of games that have already been announced, I do have an article on thoughtprovokingtech.com. You can go check that out. So the final topic is where it's going to be available. So the list of countries that's going to be available is Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, United Kingdom, and the United States. So a decent chunk of countries that are going to be available on launch. They're kind of focusing on a smaller number of countries to hopefully probably give them a more limited rollout, so they don't have as many people hitting the servers on day one as they would potentially have if they open this up worldwide. They do have data centers that could reach people in a lot more countries, so we'll probably see Stadia start rolling out pretty rapidly once the initial kind of phase goes and they kind of get their feet wet and see how well the initial rollout goes. So with that being said, that kind of covers and wraps up everything about our Google Stadia launch details. A lot to go over there. The big thing here is pricing, and like I said earlier, I will have more to talk about that later. But if you are interested in getting into Stadia early, there is that $130 bundle they have available on their storefront. You can go buy that now or pre-order that now, and you'll be able to get into Google Stadia as soon as possible. So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is Microsoft's E3 show. We don't have a ton of cloud gaming news there, but there is a decent amount to go over. So let's go ahead and jump to our next topic. Microsoft hosted their pre-E3 show on Sunday and dropped a big news bomb about Project xCloud, and that is the fact that it is launching in October. Not the beta, it is actually fully launching in October. And by fully launching, I mean it is going to be available. We don't know what countries is going to be available yet or anything along those lines, which I'll talk about here in a bit. But this was a pretty big news drop because all the rumors and news and essentially everything we had heard was that xCloud was going to actually launch in conjunction with the Project Scarlet family of devices, which are expecting late 2020, and Microsoft did talk about those, and those are confirmed to be releasing for the holiday season of 2020. So essentially we're getting xCloud a full year early, which is very surprising because we were pretty much only expecting to get a public beta, which on that note, that's what I was mainly hoping to hear about public beta, the time frame for the public beta, how to sign up for the public beta, but we actually heard nothing about the beta at all, which is kind of surprising because if xCloud is supposed to launch in October, that's only 4 months away. That doesn't give you a huge timeline for the public beta. If it is still going to occur, maybe they won't simply have it and they'll just officially launch their service, but in a more restricted manner, kind of similar to what Google is doing by having some type of bundle that you get to buy or something along those lines to get early access, and then it will launch in 2020, closer to the original planned date for kind of a wider market. They might restrict which countries it's going to launch on. We don't have any of those details, and that is why I'm so confident saying that this is probably a big response, or a response from Microsoft from Stadia, because Google is going to be a huge competitor, especially when they announced their pricing, because we didn't get any of those details from Microsoft. Even though their service is expected to launch a month ahead of Stadia, we already have the pricing details for Stadia. We already have a list of games that will be available on Stadia when you actually get your hands on it. We know what country Stadia is going to be available. We have the Founders Edition. We have the details on it, the pricing, what's actually going to be included. We have none of those details at all for xCloud. So that's why I'm so confident saying that Microsoft definitely moved up the timeline. So those details will have to be coming out in the next couple of months because the service is going to be available. So that's pretty exciting. We'll have to wait for more details though. How much is it going to cost? I'm pretty sure that Google probably messed up a lot of their original plans, because $10 per month for 4K even is pretty disruptive. That's kind of why I have a whole video on that, because I can talk about that for quite some time. But yeah, we don't have a lot of details about xCloud now, except for the fact that it is launching in October. So that's exciting news in general. It'll be exciting to see kind of where the cloud gaming market goes now. 2019 is definitely looking like it's going to completely shake up the cloud gaming market, and it'll be exciting early 2020 to see kind of how things kind of shake out and what kind of big companies continue to release cloud gaming platforms. So the only other bit of news that kind of correlates with xCloud is the fact that Xbox Game Pass is coming to the PC. Of course, you don't have to have xCloud to take advantage of this if you have just a standard gaming PC or Shadow even, because Shadow does run on Windows 10, it doesn't run on Windows Server. You will be able to take advantage of this. This is for $5 per month. You have the PC version of Game Pass. Of course, not all the same games are available on both Game Pass. Subscriptions, there are a couple that are only available on PC, and there are quite a few that are only on the Xbox side of things. So there is that benefit there, and $5 per month isn't a huge ask for the amount of games. Of course, a lot of those are older games, but Microsoft is releasing all their first-party games on day one on the PC as part of the subscription. So especially as more of those games continue to launch with Halo in the near future, the Master Chief Collection is coming to PC. So a pretty good value there, because essentially $5 per month equates to a single AAA title. So if you plan on buying, Halo Infinity or Gears of War 5 or one of those big titles for Microsoft, essentially you can buy the Game Pass and get some added games. Even if they're not games that you were going to buy, you might be able to play those games and maybe get 20-30 hours of enjoyment out of them. Even if they are not your favorite game, you can still have that essentially for free, which is actually pretty exciting. Hopefully we don't see them kind of increase the cost of the PC side of Game Pass once more and more games get added to it. But that's only something that's like time will really tell. Also, if you do have an Xbox, not an X Pass, if you have an Xbox console, you can buy Game Pass Ultimate. This includes the Game Pass for PC, Game Pass for Xbox, as well as Xbox Live Gold. So it's kind of a whole subscription. This is for $15 per month, and you kind of get all that lumped into a single payment. So pretty cool news there. And that's kind of wraps up everything we have that is kind of relating to cloud gaming from Microsoft's E3 show. There were a lot of games, a lot of videos that they showcased, a lot of trailers. If you're interested in checking those out, you can, but they did have a new trailer for Halo Infinity, Gears of War 5, quite a few first-party titles from Microsoft, as well as a bunch of kind of third-party titles that are going to be on the Xbox platform and will very likely be on xCloud when it launches later this year. So guys, that pretty much wraps up our xCloud topic, and now we're going to talk about Apple. Some cool news there that will help cloud gaming kind of move forward on the mobile side of Apple's world. At Apple's developer conference, WWDC, they announced that Apple TV, iPhone, and iPad will get support for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 controllers later this year. This is certainly exciting news because previously you would have to buy a special controller that used the MiFi protocol to utilize a controller on Apple devices. So being able to use a controller that you already own, that you might prefer, or simply speaking has better general availability, is good news for people that have Apple devices. This will be rolling out with the iOS 13 update, or on the TV side of things, tvOS 13. And on the iOS side of things, we have the news that it will release to the public beta state in July, so you can get your hands on this new update that allows compatibility with these controllers as early as July. Generally speaking, Apple rolls out the full wide release of their big update 2 to 3 months after the public beta. So by the end of the year, nonetheless, you should have the ability to use Xbox One and PlayStation 4 controllers. But if you don't mind running beta software, you can get it as early as July. Moving on from there, we have a big announcement from Bethesda about the announcement of Orion. So cool news there. Let's go ahead and jump to that topic. So our final news topic for today's episode is the announcement of Orion. This is actually a rather exciting announcement. At first, I was kind of like another cloud gaming platform, because that's what the original headlines kind of stated that it was. But it's not really a cloud gaming platform at all. It's rather a game development tool that can be used with quote-unquote any engine and quote-unquote any streaming platform. Of course, that will have to be tested, whether it works that way, whether it works with all the different platforms, but that is kind of what they're kind of aiming at with Orion. So what Orion does, it is a game development tool that offloads certain parts of the game locally to reduce bandwidth and even latency. So this is really exciting because Microsoft has actually talked about this in the past in some of their early xCloud videos. And I hope they're still kind of going this route where certain things will still be rendered locally, because the device you're playing on will still have some compute power that could be put to doing certain aspects of the game, whether that be like hit detection to compensate for latency. It looks like here that the big part that they're trying to do here is reduce bandwidth, which is certainly good news, especially if you're planning on playing this on a mobile network, or even if you have a home network that has a bandwidth cap. For example, I have Comcast, and after a terabyte, which I've exceeded more than once, I start getting charged for that extra data that I utilize, and that can get very, very expensive, very, very fast. So being able to reduce the latency but keep that quality level at the same is only good news in the end. So reportedly, just with one of the features that Orion has in development, or that Orion has, just one of the features that they're going to implement can cut bandwidth by 40% and encode time by 30%. The impact on latency will be minimal here, and I'll cover that here in a bit. But the fact that you can cut bandwidth by 40% and still have the same kind of resolution and the same quality stream is major news. And hopefully some other game developers and platforms start adopting Orion and try testing it and implementing it with their service. Of course, if someone like Microsoft is implementing a certain tool that's similar, maybe they can be possibly used in conjunction, but it might not be something that will play fair or play nice with each other. If they're both trying to do certain aspects locally, they might utilize too much local hardware and in turn have a worse experience. But anyways, it's cool to see this being developed. In the article I was reading from The Verge, they said this could have a huge impact on latency, and this isn't really true because they talked about needing less data centers. But right now with cloud gaming, the majority of the latency that we're getting is actually from your house to the data center. So the vast majority of the latency is still due to physical proximity to the gaming data centers. And that's also impacted by the ISP that you're using. I did a video on this a while ago, kind of about the latency that you are going to expect on like a fiber connection versus a cable connection versus a 4G connection. And 5G might help that by having a lower latency connection, but 5G is still a ways off. It's still just in the early stages of being rolled out. You need a lot more towers with 5G, so it's going to be more limited to probably even more populated areas. So people out in the rural areas, if you are going to try gaming, you're probably going to be restricted to 4G for the very near foreseeable future until we have better technologies available that have a wider rollout. So with that being said, the impact on latency isn't much because it isn't cutting the encode time by 30%, but the encode time is a very, very small chunk of the total latency that we will experience. But that's not to say that Orion isn't useful, because cutting the bandwidth is a major benefit. And there might be other tools that they implement, because they're just talking about a single feature of Orion. So there are going to be other features that they have in development. We don't know how far along they are, but they might help with other aspects. And there could be a tool such as what we heard with xCloud that Microsoft was working on developing that could do physical hit detection locally, which that would be a big player into reducing the impact of latency by doing the hit detection locally, then sending that data onto the cloud to the servers to confirm what the device is saying that it had as far as hit detection goes. So in all, very cool news there. It was not active in the Stadia demos of Doom, so that is going to be interesting to see actually how big of a change it actually goes from our original Stadia, kind of what people had first impressions of playing Doom on Stadia versus what we will actually get our hands on later this year when Doom is actually available on Stadia. And it'll be interesting to see how well Orion kind of rolls out to other game platforms or to other cloud gaming platforms, as well as other game engines, and to see whether other developers start adopting it, because this will be a big player into making cloud gaming better in terms of increasing the availability, because having lower, network requirements, if you have a data cap, is going to be a huge savior there. But also, just if you don't have as fast as internet, being able to enjoy cloud gaming is going to be a big benefit of Orion. They are running a independent beta test later this year. You can play the original, not the original Doom, but the Doom 2016 edition. You're not going to be able to play the new Doom Eternal, but the 2016 version of Doom later this year with their independent beta, and you can join that now through the or you can sign up now through the Doom Slayers Club. So that pretty much wraps up all the topics for this episode of the Cloud Gaming Report. Thanks for watching or listening, guys. I definitely appreciate all the support I get from you guys and all the views. Please share this podcast or video with your friends that might be interested in cloud gaming. There was a lot of cool news from E3 and the pre-E3 events and events not really directly even tied to E3, such as Apple's WWDC conference. Cool news for cloud gaming. See a lot of cool things that are going to be impacting us later this year. It's going to be a big year for cloud gaming, definitely the last half of this year for sure. It'll be exciting to see how everything shakes out and how all these different services kind of perform. Hopefully getting some additional details about xCloud, like such as pricing and what availability it will have in October. But only time will tell on all that things. So thanks once again for watching or listening, guys. And until next time, Zach out.